Welcome to another episode of the Love Conquers podcast, where I interview dope couples who are going to be dropping gems on areas of their relationship that you may be struggling in. And this episode is no different. I got another dope couple, y'all. But before we get into the gems, listen, subscribe to the channel. Like, I need y'all to subscribe. Share it. Tell your friends and family. Love Conquers podcast. Subscribe. Show your boy some love. So let's get right into this episode. So I'm excited. I don't even know how to introduce y'all, right? Because anytime I get a referral, I know y'all a dope couple. Like, how do y'all feel about that? Like, do y'all know that y'all a dope couple?
I feel like we are.
Yeah.
I feel like we are. And just to be referred for me was huge, because that means that it's shown. Other people can see it. People you respect, people who you're close to can see that in you. So
what about you, bro? Do you when you step outside, do you know, like, do people know that? Do you intentionally, like, yo, I want to make sure that people know that me and my wife dope?
Yeah, absolutely. Every day, each and every day, all the time. Yeah.
That's the intention? That's the goal?
Yeah, that's the goal. Well, for me, it's not the goal for way people perceive us. It's the goal that I want us to perceive ourselves. And that's going to reflect to how people will be willing to see you. Say, hey, there's nothing that needs to be seen or shown. I can just see it. I know they dope. Like, whatever it is they doing, it's working.
All right, so look, let's tell the audience why y'all dope, right? I mean, I know we was talking before this, but how long y'all been married? I mean, how long y'all been together?
we've been together 14 years. 14 years, and we've been married 9 years.
Nice.
It'll be 10 years November 2nd.
Wrapping up on that, 10 years, November 2nd. So, together 14, married 9, going on 10. I know you said you got 3 kids, right?
Yes.
3 kids in the game. Y'all a dope couple. Like, y'all, you know what? Y'all a real couple.
Thank you.
Like, like, it takes a lot of work and effort to get to 15 years together total. Then 3 kids. That's a lot.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So look, I'm talking to Erica and Johnathan, man. Y'all a super dope couple, and I just want to say I appreciate y'all for allowing me to even interview y'all today. So let's get into the gems. Like, what makes y'all relationship dope?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah.
I believe what makes our relationship dope is the fact that we are committed to our happiness. And when I say our happiness, I mean my happiness and his happiness. He's committed to his happiness and my happiness. I feel like that's important because you can get married. Anybody can be married. Happily ever after. That's another story. It says love, honor, cherish. I don't think the vows, I don't remember it saying anything about happiness. And that's important. That's important for me, in my life. And I feel like that's important for my husband as well.
That's deep. Like, that's the first time I love when I hear something new. Like, what about you, Jonathan? Do you feel like what your wife just said is the same thing, or you got something different?
I feel it's the same. If I can go a little more in depth, for me, I think what makes us dope is we make our relationship our priority, as well as our kids and our family, immediate family. And for me, I try not to make our marriage comparison to anyone else's. So it needs to have its own identity, and it doesn't need to be, well, you have Sam and Sue over here doing this. It's like, well, that works for Sam and Sue. We got to do what works for us. And the continuous growth from that is just, it gets better and better and better. And you just got constant growth and development. Your level of communication and everything is just going to, spike through the roof. And, it's just going to be what you want it to be. You get married, it's like, what do you want it to be? Not just from what the Bible may say, or your family before, your parents. What do you want your marriage to be? And I would say a lot of acceptance for me and my wife. A lot of our background is pretty much similar. So we don't have a lot of that I guess you want to say positivity. So we try to break that curse, so the generational thing, and paint it for our kids like this is how it could be and this is what it should be, and from the deep bottom of our heart with love.
Wow, that's both of you guys' answers were like that's how I know y'all a real couple. You can't make that up. Like what y'all just said, that I felt that from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Where did going back to you, Erica, you started by saying happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't even remember. Like how did you phrase it? You phrased it a certain way. You said you value each other's happiness.
Being committed
To
each other's happiness.
What does that mean though? Break that down. What does that look like for you guys?
So for us, and I'll speak for me, first. Being committed to each other's happiness means we're gonna talk, we're gonna communicate, we're going to lay out what we both need, along with what we both want. And then we're gonna compromise on that. So it doesn't mean that I'm going to always get what I want. It doesn't mean that he's going to always get what he wants. But what it means is that we're going to always make an effort to meet in the middle, because it's not acceptable for either of us to have a disruption in our spirit over anything.
I got a pushback. So let me
Okay.
ask you this. During those times when he may be angry, you may be angry, or the emotion might not even show up as anger. It might show up as sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Being human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Emotions do occur.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to that middle ground? Because that is challenging for most people to be like, hey, I'm angry, or I'm sad, you're sad.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I'm just like, not even neither. It's just, I'm not feeling a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not my day. I had a long day at work. Like, we were supposed to do this, but I'm just not feeling what's going on. Like, how do you guys get to the point where it is that happy medium? Because that's hard.
It is.
I've been married, and I'm learning right now from you saying what you about to say. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how do you get that? How do you get to that happy medium?
And it's what you just said, all those emotions, being sad, having those moments where you just not feeling it, having those moments where you are down, having those moments where you're angry. That is what got me to the place of realizing that the great part, the dope part about our marriage is that we're able to always get to that happy place. We're always able to get back there, and the way we do it is different. It depends on the situation. There's been times where my husband, we, maybe had a disagreement.
Yeah.
Maybe he had to leave the house for a couple hours, and that's what we needed in that moment.
Okay.
He left, he came back, and when he came back, we were able to revisit whatever the issue was.
I like that. So when I'm hearing, if I can come to you, Jonathan, when I'm hearing your wife, and you can tell me if I'm wrong because you're saying it,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to get your point of view too. When I'm hearing your wife say is, you guys, well, she said it, you guys are committed to your happiness. Does that mean the same thing to you in terms of, hey, okay, even if you go take your space, like I know I'm in the back of my mind that I'm coming back to my wife and we gonna talk about this? Or like, is it somebody trying to force the conversation? Because you said like, hey, he's gonna go, or you might go, whatever. Like you said, the situation caters for different things.
Mm-hmm.
But still, though, like, are you guys just on one accord to know, like, hey, we got to come back anyway?
Absolutely. I know he's gonna come back.
Okay.
I know that. I trust that. I don't question it at all, because I know he loves me. I know he loves our family. I know that he may have needed a moment. I may have needed a moment. So not just him. There's been a couple of times, where I've had to remove myself from the conversation. It's best to do it that way, because you never want to get yourself in a situation where you're saying things you can't take back. You can't take back words. You can apologize for them, but they're always going to be there lingering. So we've learned that it's best when we can't get to that common ground in the moment, it's best to let's just cut it out right now. Let's just stop, and then we'll come back and revisit it.
How did you figure that out, Jonathan? Was it just patience over time?
It was patience, therapy.
Mm.
I'm currently in therapy we did marriage counseling and therapy, couples therapy and things like that. But for me, I'm learning that men, we don't really think well. We're quick to react. So learning that is to, like she said, to pull yourself away from the situation at the moment because you don't want to escalate anything higher than what it is. So if you feel like that in that moment, you can't think logically and say, hey, I could have came at a different approach and made that be something to be smoothed over and it doesn't go this high. If I can't be at that moment to do that, then maybe I need to remove myself. Then I could think about how can I do this approach to be the correct way instead of just reacting maybe in more anger or, saying some things that you may not feel that'd be, you're not thinking about your significant other. Then to harm them. Mm-hmm. And then later you're trying to apologize for something that you truly didn't mean because you just acted out of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really good. You said a lot in that. Both of you did. Referring to what you just said, Jonathan, I asked a couple on the previous podcast that I did, I said, would you do anything and everything to make sure that marriage works? And they said yes. And I'm like, and I thought that was an amazing response because both of them said, like, without a doubt, yes. And when I heard you say, like, marriage counseling and therapy, because that's, like, taboo for some folks, like, whoa, we don't do that. Like, what is that? That's for whatever, right? Going to get self-help events, books, or, life coaches, or, like, when you said that, I'm like, man, that hit home. Mm-hmm. That hit home because I'm just like, wow, how many people stop at one point? Mm-hmm. And then they never identify all the other areas that could potentially help their relationship go to the next level. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that was huge. And it's a gem in what both of you are agreeing on, which is you can't think when you're upset.
No.
Like, and that's a true gem, like, that that I'm learning, right? Like, you can't think when you're upset. Mm-mm. And the power, the thing in that is so strong and powerful that you said it, which is that allows your relationship to be dope. Mm-hmm. Because you realize that concept.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm assuming that during those times when you said it's hard or maybe difficult or transitions, you guys give each other space. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that space allows you to calm down and think.
Oh, yes. For me, it allows me to think, to reflect. And this is, again, together 14 years, married 9 years. Yeah. This is me knowing in my mind or reminding myself, this is my husband. This is my husband. I married this man. I trust this man. So I have to remember and remind myself of that when I start going to those negative places. Like, he wouldn't do anything to harm me. He wouldn't do anything to hurt me. If he's telling me something that may be difficult to receive, then maybe I need to listen with a different ear. I just need to open myself up more because I know he's not telling me anything that's going to hurt me. He's trying to help me. So I need to try to look at things from his perspective. So it's really removing myself and really putting him first in those moments so we can connect. So I can understand what it was. What was I missing that you were trying to say?
Gotcha.
So.
Man, that's a lot. And it's a lot because I'm not going to say most, but a lot of people, when they're in the heat of the moment, they try to force their spouse to talk.
Oh, yeah. We've been there.
Yeah, I've been there. That's why I can speak for it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you learn that when you forcing your spouse to talk, you forcing them to do something that they don't want to do.
Exactly.
So the reaction that you might get from them might not be the reaction that's going to be beneficial for the relationship. And so, like, it's pretty cool, like you said, that making sure that your happiness always come back to each other.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
then something else that I definitely want to highlight, I have to, is you said something that I thought I only say. And
What's that?
You said, this is my husband. And I know he's not going to hurt me. That's a gem.
Yeah.
Because if I told Johnathan, I don't know how you feel about this, but I told my wife that. I'm like, hey, we got a argument. And I felt like my point wasn't coming across. But we were willing to talk about it. We were in a moment. We didn't need a space at that time. It was just the conversation was going south. And I said, hey, like, if it's anybody you should be in this space with, it's me, because I love you. And I think people forget about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, like, the people that you closest to the most, your husband, your wife, or your kids, or your family, those are people you're vulnerable with the most. And so I think people can forget about, like, hey, this is the person that I married. This is my husband. I'm not looking for another one. Or, I don't know, do you guys think, like, and I touched on it before, and I would definitely love to hear what both your opinions would be. But do you think that this, I don't know, I'm a millennial, so, but do you think, like, the era we live in now, things are so, like, quick to turn over? It's like, you see somebody with somebody this day, then they with somebody the next day. You see somebody going through multiple divorces. And I don't know if we saw that like that back in the day.
No.
I don't know what's the difference, because, like, I don't know. I got my thoughts, but I just want to hear your thoughts, because to go 15 years, right? 9 years married, 3 kids in the game. That's not nothing to overlook. That's in this time, that's remarkable. And it's I can see why it was referred to you guys. So I would love your opinion to tell me, like, what do you think is the difference, like, in you guys going that 15 years? And you said it early too, Johnathan. I don't want to be long-winded, but you said, you try to be your relationship. This is your relationship. So you said, hey, you don't try to compare to other people's relationships. And I love that, because, like, you can just be yourself in your marriage. You don't have to try to be Jay-Z and Beyonce, but to go 15 years, 10 years almost married, what do you think is the difference? Why people not surviving that long?
The biggest thing would probably be social media. What I brought up before, it's like you have to have your own identity. And what social media does, it paints a platform to say, if I look at, your marriage and your platform is only posted highlights, and then my marriage is in shambles, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? How is this person over here so glorified? And we basically, like, I don't understand it. And then when you consistently see it, it makes individuals just to be like, well, if this is a fashion thing, then I'll just do it, and it doesn't work out, I'll walk away from it. And it's not a true dedication anymore. It's just like, hey, I'm married. I married a model, and I just did it because, this is a model, he's a model, she's a model, whatever, and it doesn't work. You just walk away, you go on to the next. And then social media is also painted that it's acceptable to do these things, and you move on, the next person you would should look better or have more jewelry, more cars, more money, and then this is what's painted out to be acceptable. And I know it's not like trueness to the marriage when these people are diving into it. It's like they're doing it quick, fast. It's kind of the way the world is running. It's like everything's snippy, snappy. No one wants to, work to build a healthy body or build themselves up to be healthy. It's like, oh, where's the next quick fix in the bottle?
So let me ask you this then, because that's a great point. And I love that point. And I somewhat believe that point. So I want to push back and ask you this question though. We live in a social media age, right? You have a teenage daughter. What would you tell, are you guys on social media at all?
Oh yeah.
Right? So how do you help somebody? Like what you said, bro. I believe in what you just said. Like, people look at other people's stuff so much, scrolling all day long. And I heard a guy say, they said they should have a ugly Instagram where you only post the bad moments.
Bad pictures? Yeah. Okay.
Like just the bad moments of your relationship, the bad moments in life. Bad, you done got fired, bad, you done trying to build this business up. And I thought that was brilliant. Because I'm like, man, if people show the hard times too, it can bring a reality to like humble. Yeah, it's like, yo, they not just they pulling up in the Benz in the Maserati and they both looking good, but how did they get to that point? And we don't really in this world talk about that. So my question that I want to ask you is, how do you help those couples who are on social media, because we are in a social media age and technology is advancing, things are getting faster? What advice would you give somebody that's on social media and they're married, but their marriage may be struggling? What would you tell them? Get off social media? Like, what would your response be?
I probably would. For me personally, I'm not really in tune fully with social media.
Okay.
I only go on certain platforms, and then I usually just post quotes. I may do, some memes here and there, but if that's, you find that a hindering factor, it's like almost saying it's like, hey, if I'm an alcoholic, if this kind of disrupted my marriage, what do I do? Should I change this? So my answer to that would probably be to maybe deactivate the pages, go back to your spiritual side, maybe seek some therapy. And then if you see improvement, then those were the areas that really were affecting you.
That was my next question. I want to see what you think about this. Like, what if they don't know that it's affecting them?
And that's the thing. So I wouldn't say get off social media.
What would you say?
Completely.
Oh, okay, keep going. Because I was about to say, do you even agree that, like, because the question was like, why are couples not?
Oh, I have a different. Okay, I had a different answer.
Okay,
for
cool,
that.
cool. Let's stay right here. Then I want to hear your answer.
Okay, yeah, but I wouldn't say get off social media. What I would say was, you see what people want you to see. Right. If social media is a factor, right? You're seeing what people want you to see. Remember that. You don't see 24/7, however many minutes it is in a day. You don't see all of that. Don't compare yourself. Okay? Don't compare yourself. Be who you are in your relationship. Be what you need to be for yourself and your partner in your relationship.
Got it. That's good. I like what both of you guys said before we get to your point on why you feel like marriages, are not like thriving, are not staying together as long. I seem like it's just a quick turnover, man. It's just like I don't even know who to hang out with. Like, I don't want to even, I really don't even want me and my wife to not hang out with nobody who don't got over a certain amount of years on everything. Like, honestly. Like, I'm just like, yo, if we going to be around some people, we going to be around some people with some substance. Because people they quick right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not even judging them. Like, maybe it's a lot of different things, right? But we talking about why you guys feel it. And I feel like, I like what both of you said. Maybe detox. You said maybe detox from it. Yeah. If you need to.
That was good.
Like, maybe you need to just step away and get some clarity in your life. And then just remembering, like, yo, if you don't detox from it, and we're talking about social media hinders some people's relationship, because it does. Some people, it does. Like, they judging all day, right? You said, hey, if you do stay on there, just remember, it's not 24/7. They're not showing you when they wake up. They're not showing you when they go to the bathroom like you go to the bathroom. They're not showing you all those moments.
Absolutely.
And so I think both of those are really, really great advices from a practical standpoint. Like, yo, deactivate. and from a mental standpoint, understanding that like, yo, that's not what it looks like all the time. Mm-hmm. Yo, what's good, y'all? Look, we gotta take a quick break, and we're gonna get right back to the podcast. I just gotta highlight our sponsor of the podcast, 7 Love Apparel Clothing Brand, one of the hottest clothing brands coming out of the Chicagoland area. They cater to men, women, and children. It's fashionable all year round, and they represent what the podcast represents: family, love, and unity. So go get you some 7 Love Apparel Clothing Brand right now. Go to 7loveapparel.com and type in Love Conquers 20, and you'll get 20% off because, you know, they're a sponsor of the podcast. So let's get right back to this episode. So tell us, like, why do you think couples are not, you know, making it to that 5-year, 6-year, 15-year mark like before?
Well, so besides, while marriage is great, marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. Marriage has its challenges. But I believe, and I don't know how true this is, but I wonder how many couples actually go through premarital counseling. How many couples actually sit down before they get married and talk about what they want their lives to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You know, how many kids do you want to have? Where do you want to live? What do you see yourself being? You know, life already throws us so many curveballs. So the things that we can sort of control, let's control that. And I think the best somewhat control to have is laying it all out before you enter into a marriage, knowing what each other wants in life. You know, knowing your beliefs, knowing what you might want to I don't know, you might want to take trips, and maybe the other person is like, well, no, I don't really, you know, like doing that. That's something that you would talk about before entering into a marriage.
That's good. So you say you feel like a lack of planning before you get married.
Yeah.
Like an actual lack of planning.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if I thought about, like, I feel like me, that's great, you know, because it took me, like I said, I was been with my wife for 12 years, but only married 3. And I think it's because of that reason why we only been married 3, which is before we got married 3 so years ago, we actually sat down and looked over our history of our relationship and asked that question, like, what do we want? And like that planning is key. That's deep. Do you feel like people don't plan, Jonathan? Like, do you feel like I never thought about it like that. Do you feel like people don't plan?
Well, I feel like people don't plan, but the flip side of that is when you plan, you know, you have things what y'all call controllables. So you have a lot of things that are gonna come. You can plan as to the T as you want, but when it doesn't go as planned, then how does that look? You know, how you guys gonna, you know, if you say, hey, well, I'm gonna go get my doctor's degree, and then I'm agree upon it, and you never go into the field of work at all. Like, now, how does that look in our marriage? You create, you know, a financial debt, and then, or you just constantly, or you just change your mind, and you don't have a plan after that, like A and B or C or D. It's just this one plan, and then after that, you're just stuck into this one mode of like, oh, I can't pull myself back out, because that could disrupt a marriage as well. So that could be another reason why a lot of individuals don't stay together long. They'll make these plans, and if it don't go as planned, hey, you said we were going to be at a house with a picket fence and this, and this, and X, Y, and Z years, and it doesn't happen. And it's like, well, it's time for me to move on. I'm going to go over here. The grass is greener on this side or something like that. And then you just find individuals like that just consistently doing it. And then another thing for me is with doing counseling, I've learned that when you actually plan and you have your values, and you go to your significant other, what your values are, like my wife mentioned, your values may be different. And one thing you're going to learn is your values are always going to change. You're not going to have the same values when you were 20 years old compared to 30 to 40. You might say, hey, my values at 20 is to make a ton of money and party with my friends, you know? And it's like, okay, what do they look like now? For me, the biggest value is health, because without health, you can't gain anything beyond it. And some things that I looked at myself and I went and said, okay, I value my friends, I value my family. And I noticed at the bottom of the totem pole was religion. And I'm like, I don't see how I even placed that way down there. But I kind of found myself doing that because, mainly, I would say because when it comes like with my wife with tithing and things like that, we would always be on the same page. I may say it's too much or it shouldn't be done that often. And then I had to question myself like, hey, how strong is your faith? You know, this is something that you have to grow and develop so you guys can be strong in the area. And then when you go and your other values would change where, oh, I value being, like for me, time is big for me. I value time because like we just don't know how much we have. You know, we here, you know, you can say you here one day, you gone tomorrow. So time is a real strong value. So I'll find myself getting upset when my time is either played with or not placed as a priority. And it cannot be intentionally. It could be the kids. It could be my wife. And it's like, well, this is my time. You know, you're fooling really with my time here. You know, and then with that aspect, I just put it in, and it flows through my whole life. Like work, my own time for myself, how much time I'm willing to work out, how much time I'm willing to spend. Because one thing you will notice is when you look at that, you'll say, hey, if my wife is not, we're not seeing eye to eye, am I putting in enough time? Or am I putting in more time over here, maybe with the fellas, or I'm putting more time in to something that's not of importance, that's not pertaining to my marriage. So you have to evaluate those things. And I think that's another aspect that people don't. It's like, hey, well, a person may communicate and say, we haven't been to the movies in a while. And it's like, well, so what? You know, and those individuals who probably, you know, going through the snappy marriages, they experience a lot of that. Hey, we're not, you know, it's not how it was day one.
You know what? Like, that's a great point. And this how I know you guys are a real couple, because you pivot off each other so good. Like you started with saying, hey, a lot of couples are not planning. And then you followed up by saying, but what are they, when they do plan, how are they pivoting when things don't go as planned? And like, that's a strong point, you know, and that's something to just like settle in, because another thing that you said, Erica, was marriage is hard. And so, and I think it has something to do like with everything that both of you just eloquently just said, which is plan. Okay, I know that. But what about when it don't go as planned?
Yes.
So, why is marriage hard? Because, and I want to tap on while you're thinking about that question. I really, you know, love what you said earlier, Johnathan. And I don't know if marriage is hard because people are not doing what you said, which is, you said what makes our relationship dope is you prioritize your marriage. Like your wife says, always coming back to that happy place. And you say, yo, what's important for me is prioritizing my marriage. Why is marriage hard though? Like I would think that, like, you know, you found the love of your life, right?
Yeah.
You know you want to be with this person. You probably was with that person a while before you got married. Because some people now, I know a guy who was with his wife for a few months. I'm talking about only dating for like 3 or some months and they've been married. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how practical that is for me. But why is marriage so hard?
So marriage is hard because, or it's hard when, I'll say, because it's not always hard. Marriage is great, but marriage is hard.
Okay.
So when it's hard, it's usually because there's a battle and you're trying to figure out how you both can win the battle. So it's not one person win and the other person lose, because then nobody wins. And
Hold on.
Okay.
Say that again, because I got a segment.
Okay.
I want to hear you say that one more time.
So it's not about one person winning and another person losing, because then both people lose.
So if one person lose,
Both people lose.
hey, I got a segment. Gym alert, gym alert, gym alert. I hope y'all caught that. That was a strong point. And that was a gym alert, because so many people are fighting to be right, and they not realizing when you lose, when you are right and your partner is wrong, you both of y'all wrong.
And do you know, I had to, that's something that we had to come to that. You know, we had to come to that and realize that it's not about battling for someone to win.
But why do people battle though when they know that they together? Like, I know I'm not leaving you. I'm with you for the rest of my life.
You know,
Like, what's the thought process? Because if we can get in the thought process of that, like, and I would love your opinion, Johnathan. Like, why am I battling with you if I know I'm gonna be with you for the rest of my life? Like, where does that come from?
I feel like that goes back to what I said earlier, reminding yourself that this is my husband, this is my wife. They're not trying to hurt me. Now, that came later though. So when you're in the moment and you're battling, there's something in you that's feeling like you're not being heard, you're not being seen, you're not being prioritized. Okay, so I'm gonna make you hear me. I need to make you see me, because something is missing there. Something's lacking, and you gotta figure out what that is. So you're battling because you need to hear me. You need to listen to me. You need to understand what I'm trying to say and how I feel.
That's Johnathan. Let me ask you this, because you pivot off your wife so well. So let me ask you this, like, because you said therapy, right? Yeah. You said counseling, couples counseling, right? So why do you feel, you know, based on your experiences and the things that you done been through, right, that people get in a space where they don't feel like they're being seen? Because that's what your wife said, right? Like, yo, we get into this altercation, this argument, this, you know, whatever, and this people fight to be seen. They fight to be heard instead of knowing that, like, yo, this is the person I'm with. Do you think like it's a family dynamics? Like we always trying to protect ourselves from people, and we kind of bring that into our marriage. Maybe we try to protect ourselves from our family members or friends, or just like a mechanism to protection. Like, what do you think about that?
I don't know, that was deep. I do think it's it can be, I don't know, that sense of always want to be right. Maybe in your childhood you were always told you were wrong, and you experienced a lot of things that way. So, you know, you just want to get your point across where you're right. But then we don't take the time to actually sit back and say, if it's my wife and we're going back and forth, and I should say to my wife, hey, what I heard you say is, and then if I present it to her and she said, well, that's not what I'm saying. And you're trying to, because the thing is, we don't take that moment to really figure out what someone is actually saying, whether it's in a high tone pitch conversation that can lead to an argument. And then that moment you want to say, hey, well, I heard you say, don't go spending a bunch of money on things that are not needed. But when in my ears may be like, well, I heard don't go spend all this dang on money like it's just growing on trees.
Right.
But then if I present it that way, then it's a clear understanding. It'll be like, okay, well, I didn't mean it that way, and that wasn't my intent.
Wow, I might do another gym alert. And I say that because, like, you just actually gave a tactic. Like, hey, instead of, like, you actually just taught us right now how to kind of communicate with somebody. Like, hey, did you hear what I said this? What did you hear? What did you hear from me? Because if you heard something differently, then maybe I need to repeat that or say it in a different way. And that hit home for me, right? Because I always used to say to my wife, like, I just said that. But to her, I said something else because of the tone of my voice. Not even because of what I said, but my tone of my voice. She was like, yo, you like to do motivational speaking to kids. You're not talking to a kid. Lower your voice. And I'm like, because when my voice elevated, she couldn't hear nothing I said. And so the fact that you just said that, I actually had to start practicing that. First of all, understanding that my tonality was not for her. And then understanding like, yo, okay, now I said this. Is that what you heard? No, yeah, I did. I heard that. So that's a gem. And I appreciate you even bringing that. That's heavy, right? Like, I appreciate you bringing that to the podcast. Like, because I think somebody else can really use that.
Yeah.
So let's touch on this. You said earlier, and I brought it up already, what does that mean to you to make your relationship a priority? Because I can assume, right, like, okay, that means he's just going to spend time with his wife, I guess. Like, but what does that mean? Because there's a lot of people who are not making a relationship a priority. Matter of fact, no, let me say that. It's a lot of people who think they're making their relationship a priority, but they're not. So what does that mean for you when you say make your relationship a priority?
Well, to make it a priority, you want to make sure you're checking in, whether it's, how did your day go? And actually be there to really listen. Don't just have a question there just because you think it has to be that. Like, oh, how was your day? And it's like, oh, it was like any other day. Like, they got on my nerve. And it's like, okay, we'll elaborate a little bit more. It's like, well, they came in, this one lady did this and this guy did that. And now, like, my stress level is right here. And, like, I feel like I got my blood pressure is up and I got a headache. And that, at that point, I feel your significant other should show, some like, okay, well, let's try this. I made your favorite meal. Here's something for the headache. I'm sorry that happened. And you kind of want to demonstrate that both ways. Then that's just one way of making it a priority. Other ways is just, always just, making sure that you.
But like, where you going with it? Let's stay right there for a second, because I definitely want to bring you in this, because that's great. Like when you said it, I kind of laughed because your point was so strong. I thought about, how people, when you see somebody in the store or you walking past somebody, you say, hey, how you doing? And they be like, I'm good. But what if they stopped and said, I feel like garbage right now. I feel like taking my life right now. Then what would you say? And so you see that all the time in the culture, though. It's like part of the culture, where it's like you even walk into the barbershop. Like, I'm blessed, right? I walk into the barbershop. My barber, one of my top dogs. So I can walk in there and say, bro, I'm not feeling good. Yo, let's talk about this. But how many people go get haircuts? How many people go to the salon? How many people go places and they say, and I'm bringing this back to the relationship, hey, how are you? I'm good. Or they're afraid to say I'm not good. And so people actually bring that into their relationship. Hey, how you doing, babe? I'm good. I know you just said you're good, but you don't normally say it like that. Like, you just said you're good, but you looking down. Your mannerisms, you don't operate like that. And so, like, I wanted you to stay right there because, like, so many people can learn from that. Actually ask the question to actually get a real answer. Be listening for the answer.
Yes.
That's good. Do you feel like, I know that wasn't your answer, but how do you feel about that? Like, just making your relation, does it mean the same thing to you? What I got from your husband is, when you check in, really check in though. Like, don't play with the check in. Like, actually check in.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you feel about, making your relationship a priority? Does it look different for you, or what would your statement be on that?
Making my relationship a priority. I agree. I agree with him with the checking in. I feel like it's important to talk as much as you can. You know, have as many conversations as you can. My husband works. You know, his hours fluctuate. So sometimes when he comes home, I try to stay up and wait, but sometimes I'm tired.
Yeah.
But then I say, okay, I know I went to bed on you, so I'm going to make sure that I stay up for you the next night, because I know that he requires and desires a certain level of my attention. You know, it's the way that our relationship has always been. So that's something that I have to provide. You know, it's something I want to provide to him. So I agree with that. I agree with that. Checking in for me is huge. I do check-ins with my kids. You know, we do family check-ins. You know, I've asked my kids to rate me as a mother.
How many people do that? You know what? Let me say this, because y'all giving a lot of game. We about to touch back on that. Like, you know, y'all gave so much game, right? Like, you said, hey, don't be afraid to go to therapy. It might help you, right? You know, check in with your spouse. Like, understanding that it's okay to go separate ways, but just know how the mentality that we coming back to each other. That, you know, that's so deep in itself, and it's so rich, and it's something that we can probably talk hours about. It's books written on what you guys are talking about. You know, it's people who get paid a lot of money to help people through what you're talking about, right? And so I want to touch on what you just said, but I just have to highlight some points real quick. How many people are literally afraid to get the answer from you and kids? But how many people are afraid to get the answer from their spouse?
Oh yeah, I'm like, I'm not asking him, but we have had those. He's critical. We have had those conversations.
I get it, but it's real though. You know what I mean?
It is, and you know, you get you get so much when you open yourself up to receiving what your spouse has to say, and you remember they're not trying to hurt me. They're telling me this to help me. You know, he's telling me this because he knows my potential. He knows what I can be and who I can be. That's the reason that he's saying, and vice versa, because we've had to have some hard conversations in our relationship. We've had to say some things to each other, and not in a derogatory way, but we've had to say, you're slipping.
Right.
You know, I need you to, you know, kind of rewind on that. We need to kind of fix this because it's not looking good. Yeah. And, you know, the same with him. You have to do that, because you walk around like everything's okay, and you just waiting on an explosion. You know?
And that's probably why a lot of people go through what we were talking about earlier, divorces, because they wait, and then it come to the point where now they get a divorce. Instead of like, yo, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's get it out. Let's, you know, the couple that referred you, the Burdens.
Yes.
She was big in that podcast, and for all of my podcast listeners, that was episode 11. She was big on sacrifice. And she talked about it in a way that made me feel like, I'm gonna be honest, man, are you sacrificing enough for your life? And it made me feel some type of way, because as a man and as a husband, as a father, I want her to know I'm sacrificing for her. And I brought that point up because you said something that a lot of people are not doing. I know this for a fact, right? A lot of people are not sacrificing in the way that you say, yo, I might go to sleep tonight. I might go to sleep tonight. But I promise you I'm going to be up tomorrow night. And that is a sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad you said that, because it's so many people who don't know what a sacrifice even looks like. And just going back to that, making your relationship a priority. To me, making a relationship a priority requires sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And so I'm so glad that you used that as an example, because, we don't have no blueprint on love. There's no blueprint to teach us love.
No, it's not.
Now, some people are fortunate to see parents, but it's kind of, and that's a blessing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can learn from bad relationships, you can learn from good relationships, and something I also learned from the previous podcast. But it's something about when you got to go through it yourself, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about it.
It's different. Like, you can say, like, yo, they why are we not doing what they doing, And you guys are true, and this is, you guys are a true inspiration.
Thank you.
And I hope that, a lot of people get value from this podcast, because sacrifice, 15 years in the game, 9 years married, 3 kids down the line, and it's so much. It's like y'all really only been together 15 minutes. You know why? Because it's so much more. Like,
oh yeah,
y'all so young and vibrant that it's like, I might have to come back and interview all my couples when they get 80.
You gonna have to.
Like, like, I remember when y'all was, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We're gonna be waiting.
That'll be super dope. Oh, I mean, like I said, you guys are an amazing, dope couple, right? You talked about sacrifice. You talked about, putting your spouse as a priority. You talked about understanding. I said this earlier, but I just want the podcast listeners to know how important this is to come back to each other. Like, you're married to this person for a reason. Do not forget that in the hard times.
Yeah.
Like, the and I want to see if you guys agree, but being married to a person, it's going to get hard. Like, whatever that, everybody's heart is different. Your heart could look like, yo, you're not cleaning up the house. Somebody else's heart could look like infidelity. Who knows? But you're going to go through something. And I just want everybody to know, based off of your relationship and the information that you've been giving me today, it's okay to come back.
Oh, absolutely.
It's okay to just come back. Just talk. Just go take a second and breathe. So let me ask you guys this. Any closing remarks for those people who watching this? Those people who might come back and see this. They might not watch it today, but they might see it in 5 years. Those couples who are going through something. I envision, millions of people watching this. So, it's on YouTube. It's going to be on all all streaming sites. So what do you say for those people who like, yo, I just watched the Love Conquers podcast and I just learned this. What would you say to those people?
I would say marriage is absolutely a sacrifice. Absolutely is prioritizing. Remember that sometimes you're going to have to put yourself last in order to get the glory in your marriage. You're gonna have to put yourself last so that you can put your partner first, which ultimately will lift up your marriage. So
that's good. I appreciate that. What about you?
I would say marriage itself, I wouldn't say it's hard. I would say it comes with challenges, but on the other side of that, the challenges, they're always the greater, glorier days, which the challenges actually bring forward. Just stay in the marriage and your communication levels, try to always increase those, to the point where you truly understand what is being said from either party. So you guys can just continue to grow and be strong, and love one another with 100% dedication all the time.
And demonstration.
And demonstration.
Show it. I like that. Look, I mean, this is a blessing to have you guys. If you can do me a favor, I like to play a little game. I call it a game.
Okay.
Because whoever loses, I just want them to do something special for the other spouse. I don't even go long anymore. But the point of it is for you during those hard times, to just try it.
Okay.
Me and my wife spontaneously tried it one day, and it helped us. And it came from just us just talking.
Okay.
And so, if you can, just do me a favor and look at each other real quick. The game is our unity created this. So you're gonna go back and forth, right?
Okay.
And when you go back and forth, you don't have to go long. But if you can continue to go and somebody loses, they have to do something special for the other person.
Okay.
Right? So, but besides the actual game itself, like I said, when those tough times come along, literally get 2 chairs, sit down. If you want to hold hands, just look at each other and say, yo, we going through this. But our unity created, me and my wife unity created this podcast to help other people. You know?
Okay.
And so that could allow you to get in a state of gratefulness. It can allow you to be in a state of gratitude. And it can allow you to remember, like, what did God tell me in the light that now I can pull in the dark? And so remember those things. I really want you to take that away.
Yes.
But if you can, look at each other. And I'm going to start with you, Johnathan. Our unity. So you got to say the whole phrase. Our unity created.
Our unity created happiness.
Our unity created our kids.
Our unity created our bond.
Our unity created our love.
Our unity created our want and passion for more in life.
Our unity created our desire for happiness in our lives.
Our unity created the love and passion that we have for our mothers and fathers.
One more.
Our
How we gonna close it out?
unity created breaking generational curses.
Hey, this is what the Love Conquers podcast is all about. You know what?
That's good.
They did so dope. They both won, right? This is what the Love Conquers podcast is all about, man. Listen, I had another dope couple coming on here, dropping gems to try to help you. Not being boastful, not being cocky, not saying their relationship is the best, but they came on here saying, hey, we got something in us that can potentially help you in your relationship. Subscribe to the channel, right? Love Conquers podcast. Tell your friends. This is what it's all about. They talked about connection. They talked about love. They talked about sacrifices. They talked about putting your spouse first, which may require you to be last. Go back through the podcast. Listen, subscribe. We love you. We thank you. And just be blessed.